Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet trembles with the weight of giants, where the air is filled with the screeches of flying reptiles the size of airplanes, and where the most dangerous predator to ever exist is watching you from the dense jungle foliage. It is a time so distant that if you compressed the entire history of Earth into a single 24-hour day, the dinosaurs ruled for more than an hour and a half, while we humans have only been here for the last few seconds. 66 million years ago, a colossal rock from space slammed into our planet, triggering a catastrophe that erased these magnificent creatures from the face of the Earth forever. Or so we thought. Today we are learning that the story of the dinosaurs is not just a tale of extinction, but a story of incredible survival, evolution, and a legacy that still lives among us today. Hello everyone, I am Alex, and welcome to the ultimate journey back in time. We are about to embark on an adventure through the ages, exploring the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. We will separate the myths from the facts and uncover the real science behind the bones. If you are fascinated by the prehistoric world, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you do not miss a single moment of our journey. Also, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what your favorite dinosaur is. Let us get started. The story begins in the ashes of the greatest tragedy our planet has ever witnessed. Before the first dinosaur ever walked the Earth, the world was recovering from an event known as the Great Dying. This happened around 252 million years ago, and it wiped out nearly 90% of all life in the oceans and 70% on land. It was a desolate place, a hot, dry, and lonely planet. But life is resilient. In the harsh, arid deserts of the supercontinent Pangaea, a group of creatures called archosaurs began to rise. They were the ancestors of the dinosaurs, the crocodiles, and the pterosaurs. At this time, they were not the kings of the jungle. They were small, skittish animals, constantly looking over their shoulders for the much larger reptiles that dominated the landscape. The first true dinosaurs appeared during the Triassic period, roughly 230 million years ago. They were not the massive beasts we see in movies. They were small, bipedal carnivores. One of the earliest known dinosaurs was a little creature called Eoraptor, which means dawn stealer. It was only about 3 feet long and weighed just 10 pounds. Imagine a creature the size of a slender chicken, but with a long tail and sharp, serrated teeth. It scurried through the undergrowth of the ancient fern prairies, hunting insects and small lizards. Despite its small size, Eoraptor had a secret weapon. It walked on 2 legs, with its legs tucked directly underneath its body. This is a massive evolutionary advantage. Other reptiles at the time, like the dicynodonts and rhynchosaurs, had their legs splayed out to the sides like a lizard. This meant they had to move their bodies from side to side to walk, which was slow and energy-intensive. The early dinosaurs, with their upright posture, could move faster and breathe more efficiently. Their lungs could process air unimpeded by the bending of their bodies. As millions of years passed, these early survivors began to diversify. They split into 2 main groups based on the shape of their hips. You had the lizard-hipped dinosaurs, or saurischians, and the bird-hipped dinosaurs, or ornithischians. It is quite ironic that birds actually evolved from the lizard-hipped group, but nature has a funny way of doing things. During the late Triassic, the world was changing. The climate was becoming hotter and drier, and food was scarce. This environmental pressure acted as a crucible for evolution, weeding out the weak and driving the strong to adapt. The dinosaurs were faster, smarter, and more adaptable than their competitors. They could survive the long droughts that killed off the large, lumbering herbivores of the past. By the time the Triassic period ended and the Jurassic period began, the dinosaurs were ready to take over the world. The shadowy creatures of the undergrowth were about to become the masters of the planet. The transition to the Jurassic period brought about a dramatic change in the Earth's geography. The supercontinent Pangaea began to rift apart. Huge cracks opened up in the crust, and lava poured out, creating new ocean basins. As the continents drifted apart, the climate became wetter and more humid. This rain transformed the deserts into lush, green paradises. Dense forests of conifers, ginkgos, and cycads stretched as far as the eye could see. This explosion of plant life provided the fuel needed for the evolution of the largest animals to ever walk the earth. This was the age of the sauropods, the long-necked giants. These creatures defy our understanding of biology. Animals like Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, and Apatosaurus grew to sizes that are almost impossible to comprehend. A large Brachiosaurus could weigh up to 50 tons. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the weight of 10 large African elephants. Their necks were like giant cranes, allowing them to reach vegetation that no other animal could touch. They had small heads relative to their bodies and pencil-like teeth that they used to strip leaves off branches with military precision. But how did they get so big? It was a combination of high carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, which made plants grow incredibly fast, and their unique biology. Sauropods had a highly efficient respiratory system similar to that of modern birds. They had air sacs throughout their bodies, not just in their lungs, which allowed them to pump oxygen through their system very efficiently. This meant they could process huge amounts of food and fuel their massive bodies without overheating. Life for a sauropod was not without danger. They lived in herds, and there is safety in numbers. The ground must have shaken when a herd of these giants migrated. The thumping of their feet would have been a low-frequency rumble that could be felt for miles. This vibration acted as a warning system, alerting other animals to their presence. But even with their size, they were vulnerable to predators. The Jurassic period saw the rise of the first truly giant meat-eaters. Allosaurus was the king of the Jurassic. It was smaller than the famous Tyrannosaurus rex, reaching about 30 feet in length, but it was a formidable hunter. Allosaurus had long arms with sharp claws and a skull that acted like a shock absorber. It likely used its skull like a hatchet, swinging its open mouth down onto its prey to inflict deep, slashing wounds. Imagine the tension of a hunt. A herd of Diplodocus is drinking at a riverbank. The water is murky, hiding the dangers beneath the surface. Suddenly, an Allosaurus bursts from the trees. It does not go for the full-grown adults. It targets the young or the sick. It is a high-stakes game of chess played on a massive scale, where one wrong move means death. While the land was dominated by giants, the oceans of the Jurassic were teeming with monsters of their own. We often forget that marine reptiles like ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and pliosaurs were not dinosaurs. They were distant cousins that returned to the sea to find their fortune. The oceans of the past were warmer and richer in life than they are today. They were filled with giant fish, squids, and ammonites, which are relatives of the modern nautilus. The oceans were a dangerous place, and the predators at the top of the food chain were incredibly specialized. One of the most terrifying hunters of the deep was a creature called Leopleurodon. It belonged to a group called pliosaurs, which were essentially the great white sharks of the Jurassic, but much bigger. Leopleurodon had a massive skull, some measuring over 10 feet in length. Its jaws were lined with teeth the size of cucumbers, designed to grip and hold on to slippery prey. It had 4 powerful flippers that it used to fly through the water with surprising grace and speed. Scientists believe Liopleurodon had an incredible sense of smell. It could detect a drop of blood in the water from miles away. In the dim, blue light of the deep ocean, it would patrol the reefs, looking for an unwary plesiosaur or a school of fish to devour. The sheer power of this animal is difficult to visualize. It could bite through the hard shell of a giant turtle as if it were a cracker. Above the waves, the sky was also conquered. The pterosaurs were the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight. They were not dinosaurs, but they were close relatives. In the Jurassic, pterosaurs were generally small to medium-sized, but some grew quite large. They had wings made of a skin membrane stretched from an elongated 4th finger to their ankle. Imagine standing on a Jurassic beach. The sun is setting, casting a golden light over the water. You look up and see a flock of Rhamphorhynchus, a pterosaur with a long tail and a diamond-shaped flap on the end for stability, skimming the water for fish. They fill the air with screeches and calls. The atmosphere of the Mesozoic era was not just about the ground. It was a 3-dimensional world full of life. From the deepest trenches to the highest clouds, reptiles had found a way to conquer every environment. It was a time when life on Earth pushed the boundaries of what was biologically possible, creating creatures that seem more like the product of a vivid imagination than reality. Which of these prehistoric marine monsters do you find the most frightening? Let me know in the comments below and tell me why. As the Jurassic faded away, the Earth entered the Cretaceous period. This was the final act of the dinosaur drama. The continents continued to drift, moving closer to their current positions. The climate continued to warm, and sea levels rose, flooding large parts of the continents and creating vast inland seas. This isolation of land masses led to a fascinating evolutionary phenomenon. Dinosaurs on different continents began to evolve in very different ways, creating a diverse array of weird and wonderful creatures. In South America, for example, the isolation allowed the evolution of the largest land animals that have ever lived. The titanosaurs were a family of sauropods that took gigantism to the extreme. Argentinosaurus is a prime example. This creature was so massive that it stretched the laws of physics. It weighed over 70 tons and was over 100 feet long. When it walked, it must have caused small earthquakes. To hunt such massive prey, the predators also had to get bigger. This led to the evolution of Giganotosaurus. It was larger than Tyrannosaurus rex, though perhaps slightly lighter. It had serrated teeth shaped like shark teeth, perfect for slicing through thick hide. But the Cretaceous is perhaps best known for the evolution of the most famous dinosaur family of all, the Tyrannosaurids. In Asia and North America, the tyrannosaurs began as small, dog-sized predators, but over millions of years, they evolved into the apex predators of the North. The most famous of them all, of course, is Tyrannosaurus rex. But the Cretaceous was also home to the duck-billed dinosaurs, or hadrosaurs. These were some of the most successful herbivores of the time. Animals like Edmontosaurus and Parasaurolophus traveled in massive herds that numbered in the thousands. They were social animals that likely communicated with complex calls. Parasaurolophus had a long, curved crest on its head that acted like a trumpet. It could blast low-frequency sounds for miles, allow the herd to stay in contact even in dense forests or tall grasses. This period also saw the rise of the horned dinosaurs, the ceratopsians. The early forms were small and lacked horns, but by the late Cretaceous, they had evolved into tanks like Triceratops and Styracosaurus. These were not just passive grazers, they were formidable adversaries. A three-horned triceratops weighed as much as a bull elephant and had a bony frill protecting its neck. When two triceratops fought over territory or mates, the clash of their horns would have been deafening, echoing through the prehistoric swamps like the sound of colliding trains. The Cretaceous was a world of extremes: extreme size, extreme weapons, and extreme diversity. It was the peak of the dinosaur era, a time when life on Earth was more vibrant and dangerous than ever before. When we think of the Cretaceous, we often think of North America and the terrifying Tyrannosaurus rex. But let us travel back to North Africa, around 100 million years ago. Here, the environment was drastically different. It was a lush, green paradise of tidal flats, mangrove swamps, and wide rivers. This was the kingdom of a truly unique predator, Spinosaurus. For a long time, Spinosaurus was a mystery to science. The original fossils were destroyed during World War II, leaving us with only drawings and descriptions. But recent discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of this creature. We now know that Spinosaurus was not just a dinosaur that lived near water. It was a dinosaur adapted to live in the water. Spinosaurus had a long, crocodile-like snout filled with conical teeth, perfect for catching slippery fish. Its nostrils were high up on its snout, allowing it to breathe while the rest of its head was submerged. But the most striking feature was the sail on its back. It was a giant fin, supported by spines up to 7 feet tall. This sail could have been used to regulate body temperature or to attract mates. It made the animal look absolutely enormous, perhaps reaching over 50 feet in length, making it longer than T-Rex. However, its body was more slender, its hind legs were short, and its paddle-like feet suggest it was a capable swimmer. It likely spent much of its time in the rivers, hunting giant coelacanths and freshwater sharks. Sharing this environment was another formidable hunter, Carcharodontosaurus. Its name means shark-toothed lizard, and for good reason. Its teeth were serrated and shaped like steak knives. It was a massive land predator, similar in size to T-Rex. Imagine the tension in this ecosystem. You have a giant land predator stalking the riverbanks, while a giant aquatic predator patrols the waters. If a dinosaur came to drink, it risked being ambushed from the water by a Spinosaurus. If a giant fish swam too close to the shore, it risked being snatched by Carcharodontosaurus. This dynamic created a unique balance of power. The discovery of Spinosaurus has shown us that dinosaurs were not just confined to the land. They were exploring ecological niches we never thought possible. It paints a picture of a prehistoric world that was even more diverse and strange than we previously imagined. It reminds us that there is still so much we do not know, and that a single fossil find can rewrite the history books. Let us return to the late Cretaceous of North America, to a time and place that has become famous in pop culture: the Hell Creek Formation. This was a coastal plain, cut by winding rivers and bordered by swampy lowlands. The vegetation was thick, dominated by flowering plants which had recently evolved and were rapidly changing the landscape. This was the kingdom of the tyrant lizard king, Tyrannosaurus rex. We have mentioned T-Rex before, but now we need to really understand this animal. It is perhaps the most famous prehistoric animal of all time, and for good reason. T-Rex was the culmination of millions of years of predatory evolution. It was over 40 feet long and weighed up to 9 or 10 tons. Its skull was 5 feet long, lined with teeth that were up to 12 inches long, including the root. These teeth were not just sharp, they were bone crushers. T-Rex had one of the strongest bite forces of any animal in history. It could bite through the frill of a triceratops and crush its skull. This sets it apart from other large predators like Giganotosaurus or Spinosaurus, which likely sliced flesh to cause blood loss. T-Rex wanted to kill you instantly. It wanted to break your bones. But there is more to T-Rex than just brute strength. We used to think of it as a slow, lumbering creature that dragged its tail on the ground. We know now that is wrong. T-Rex stood horizontally, balanced by its massive tail. It had a bird-like respiratory system that allowed it to be very active. And its eyes. This is the key to its hunting style. T-Rex had forward-facing eyes. This gave it binocular vision, just like humans or hawks. It could see in 3 dimensions and judge distances perfectly. It was not a scavenger that just ate dead things. It was an intelligent ambush predator. It would hide in the dense forests, using its acute sense of smell to locate prey. Then, it would burst out, reaching speeds of up to 25 miles per hour. Once it caught its prey, the game was over. There was no escape. The ecosystem of Hell Creek was a brutal place, but it was also a social one. We have found evidence that T-Rex may have lived in family groups and cared for their young. It adds a layer of complexity to the monster. It was a devoted parent as well as a terrifying killer. As the Cretaceous period drew to a close, the dinosaurs were at the height of their power. They had conquered the land, the sea, and the air. But there were troubling signs beneath the surface. Massive volcanic eruptions in what is now India, known as the Deccan Traps, were spewing lava and gas into the atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years. This was poisoning the air and changing the climate. The dinosaurs, adapted to a warm, stable world, were facing a planet that was becoming unstable. Sea levels were dropping, habitats were shrinking, and food sources were changing. The stage was set for a final, dramatic finale. We have all heard the story. An asteroid, 6 miles wide, hurtling through space at 45,000 miles per hour. It struck the Earth with the force of 10 billion atomic bombs. The impact site is on the Yucatan Peninsula in modern-day Mexico. The day of the impact was probably like any other day in the late Cretaceous. A T-Rex might have been hunting along a riverbank, unaware that its life was about to end, in a flash of light brighter than the sun. The asteroid hit, and the energy release was instantaneous. A fireball expanded outward, incinerating everything within a radius of nearly 1,000 miles. The shock wave flattened forests like twigs. Tsunamis, hundreds of feet high, swept across the coastlines, drowning everything in their path. But the real killer came after the explosion. The impact threw vaporized rock, dust, and sulfur high into the atmosphere. This debris circled the globe and blocked out the sun. The Earth went dark. For months, perhaps years, the sun was barely visible. Photosynthesis stopped. The plants died. The plant-eaters starved. The meat-eaters followed. It was a catastrophic collapse of the food web. The dinosaurs, which had ruled for over 160 million years, could not survive this new, dark, frozen world. Only the small, the scavengers, and the aquatic creatures made it through. The birds, the descendants of the small, feathered theropods, survived because they could eat seeds and insects and fly to find shelter. The mammals, our ancestors, survived because they were small and could burrow underground to escape the heat and the cold. It was a tragic end to a magnificent era, but it was also a new beginning. The extinction of the dinosaurs cleared the stage for the rise of mammals, and eventually, for us. Standing here in the modern world, looking at the bones in a museum, it is easy to feel a sense of loss. We look at the skeleton of a T-Rex or a Stegosaurus and see something that is gone, something that failed. But that is not the right way to look at it. The dinosaurs were not a failure. They were the most successful group of animals this planet has ever seen. They dominated the Earth for over 160 million years. For comparison, humans have only been here for about 300,000 years. The dinosaurs lived through times of dramatic climate change, shifting continents, and rising and falling seas. They evolved into thousands of different species, from the size of a hummingbird to the size of a whale. Their legacy is all around us. The birds you see in your backyard are living dinosaurs. They carry the DNA of the giants in their cells. They have the hollow bones, the wishbone, and the efficient lungs of their ancestors. When you watch an eagle soar or a robin hop on the grass, you are looking at the descendants of the raptors and the tyrannosaurs. In a way, the dinosaurs never really died out. They just changed their shape. We study them not just because they are cool, which they certainly are, but because they tell us about the nature of life on Earth. They show us that life is resilient, that it can recover from the worst disasters. But they also show us that nothing lasts forever. The Earth changes, and species must adapt or perish. It is a lesson that is incredibly relevant to us today. We are the current masters of this planet, but we are not immune to the forces of nature. I hope this journey has helped you see these creatures in a new light. They were not just movie monsters. They were living, breathing, feeling animals that lived, loved, fought, and died in a world very different from our own. They deserve our respect and our fascination. Thank you so much for watching. Before you go, I have one last question for you. If you had a time machine and could go back to see one specific dinosaur event or interaction, what would it be? Would you want to see the nesting grounds of a sauropod herd or the final hunt of a T-Rex? Please write your answer in the comments below. I really want to know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and give this video a like if you enjoyed the trip through time. Until next time, keep exploring the past. Goodbye.